My wife demanded a divorce and the house. You can't afford an attorney to fight me, she declared. I answered, you're right. She handed me court papers only to have the city's most feared, highest-priced divorce lawyer take a seat beside me. He glanced at her and said he didn't need to be affordable. He was my older brother. Evelyn told me last Tuesday she wanted a divorce. There was no sorrow in her eyes, no remorse in her tone. It felt like a proclamation of conquest. We were in the living room of the house we'd spent 8 years transforming into our sanctuary, and she addressed me with the detached finality of an executioner at a corporate takeover. It's over, Tom, she said, setting a file folder on the coffee table. I've already spoken to a lawyer. These are my conditions. I didn't open the folder. I didn't need to. She was eager to recite her demands. She wanted the house, the same house my grandfather had helped me put a down payment on. She wanted 70% of our joint savings, and she wanted alimony for at least 5 years. It wasn't bargaining, it was total capitulation. When she finished, she leaned back, wearing a smug, assured smirk. And I don't want to fight about this, Tom, she said, her voice steeped in condescending pity. Let's be realistic. You're a high school woodshop teacher. You earn a decent living, but you can't hire a real attorney. My guy will bury you in legal bills before you even set foot in a courtroom. It's better for you to accept the terms and walk away. I sat, looking at the woman I had loved and with whom I had built a life, and a hard, icy numbness settled over me. She wasn't merely leaving me, she intended to destroy me. She viewed me as weak, a hindrance to be crushed and discarded. Her chief weapon, she presumed, was my supposed inability to retaliate. I let the silence linger for a long moment. Then I fixed my face into an expression of resignation and spoke the 2 words she expected to hear. You're right. The relief that washed over her was immediate. She had won. The humble, ordinary teacher was not going to resist. She rose, smoothed her skirt, and said, Good. I'm glad you're being sensible about this. You'll be served with the official papers next week. Then she left the room. What Evelyn knew was that I was a man of modest means. She knew I didn't have tens of thousands to spend on a legal fight. She also knew I had an older brother named Marcus, and she assumed Marcus was out of my life. Marcus isn't a teacher. Marcus is a predator in a suit, the most feared, most expensive divorce attorney in the state, a legal force whose name makes other lawyers uneasy. For all practical purposes, he had been estranged from me for 5 years after a bitter falling out over the family home, the house we grew up in. I wanted to keep it for memories, as a place for our families. Marcus, the pragmatist, saw it as an illiquid asset to sell and split. The argument turned vicious and left us on opposite sides of a canyon of wounded pride. We hadn't spoken since. Evelyn had witnessed the tail end of that dispute and assumed I was permanently cut off from the only powerful person in my family. In her calculation, my greatest potential ally was dead. She was wrong. For 3 days after her announcement, I was in a bleak place. She was right about one thing. I couldn't fight her on her terms. The possibility of losing the house, the savings, everything I'd worked for felt suffocating. On the 4th day, I hit bottom, and from there, the only way was up. I swallowed every ounce of pride that had cost me my brother for half a decade and tracked down Marcus's private cell number. My hand trembled as I dialed. I expected voicemail or a terse assistant. After 2 rings, a familiar deep voice answered. Hello, Marcus, I said. My own voice sounded weak and alien. It's Tom. A long pause. For a second, I thought he might hang up. Tommy, he finally said, the old nickname sounding strange after so many years. What's wrong? Everything spilled out. Evelyn's demands, her lawyer, her coldness, her parting taunt, you can't afford a lawyer to fight me. Another heavy silence. When he spoke, his voice had changed. Surprise had been replaced by something I hadn't heard in years, the protective growl of an elder brother, the sound of steel. She said what? He asked quietly. I repeated the words. Okay, he said. When and where's the first court appearance? Next Tuesday at the downtown courthouse, I told him. I'll clear my schedule, he said. Don't speak to her. Don't speak to her lawyer. Don't sign anything. Just show up Tuesday. I'll meet you there. We hung up. My heart pounded with a mix of terror and a dangerous hope. Evelyn thought she had disarmed me. She had no idea she'd just handed me a nuclear option. She was about to learn a hard lesson about what family really means. Update 1. The morning of the preliminary hearing was a miserable, rainy Tuesday, appropriately dour. I entered the courthouse alone, feeling every inch the defeated man Evelyn expected. I wore my best and only suit, the one reserved for weddings and funerals. It felt like both. The courtroom was sterile and impersonal, smelling of old paper and nerves. Evelyn was already seated at the plaintiff's table, looking immaculate in a sharp dark blue power suit, hair perfectly styled, confidence radiating off her like a battle flag. Beside her sat her lawyer, a man in his 50s with a smug, self-satisfied smirk. They were chuckling together as I came in. Her smile faltered when she saw me, replaced by pity. She had expected me to appear more broken. I met her gaze blankly, then took my place at the defendant's table, set my battered briefcase down, and waited. Her lawyer rose and sauntered over. "Mr. Miller," he said, dripping with condescension, "I'm glad you're here. I trust you've reviewed my client's very generous proposal. If you're ready to sign today, we can make this quick and painless." "I'm waiting for my counsel," I replied softly. He chuckled. "Your counsel? Good luck with that. Let's not drag this out." The bailiff called the court to order, and the judge, a stern woman, entered and scanned the docket. Miller versus Miller. "Are both parties present and represented?" Evelyn's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Alan Davis for the plaintiff, Mrs. Evelyn Miller. Before I could say anything, the heavy courtroom doors banged open and every head turned. Down the aisle strode my brother, Marcus Sterling. He wasn't merely in a suit, he was in a tailored suit of armor spun from midnight and intimidation, moving with the lithe menace of a panther, his expensive leather briefcase swinging at his side. Whispers rippled as lawyers and staff recognized him. His reputation preceded him. He ignored everyone else, fixed on me, walked to my table, laid a hand on my shoulder and squeezed it. Then he sat, set his gleaming briefcase down with a decisive click that echoed through the hush. Evelyn's smugness evaporated. Her face drained of color, jaw slack, eyes wide as if a ghost had sat at the opposing table. Her lawyer turned even worse. The smirk vanished, replaced by mortal fear. He knew who Marcus was. Marcus leaned toward me, ignoring the room. "Sorry I'm late, little brother," he whispered with a faint smile. "Traffic was hell." Then he straightened, all business, and announced himself to the judge. "Marcus Sterling, Your Honor, representing the defendant, Mr. Thomas Miller." The judge's eyebrows rose. She knew the name. Marcus's gaze moved slowly to Evelyn and her attorney. He afforded them a cold, predatory smile, and then delivered the line that obliterated her plan. "He doesn't have to afford me. I'm his older brother." The dynamic shifted instantly. Evelyn had expected an easy surrender, and instead walked into an ambush. Marcus opened his briefcase, produced a thick stack of files, and the demolition began. He promptly rejected her initial demands as predatory and filed them as made in bad faith, while announcing our intent to file a counter-petition. He demanded a full forensic audit of all marital assets and expenditures for the last 3 years, and insisted Evelyn be ordered to cover Tom's legal fees. Her lawyer stammered helplessly, like a minnow cornered by a great white. The fight was over before it began. Update 2. The following 2 months were a legal blitzkrieg. Marcus does not operate in halves. He wages war. Evelyn and her counsel thought they'd steamroll me. Instead, they were on the receiving end of a relentless, systematic attack. Marcus filed a discovery motion that was, by all accounts, a work of terrible beauty. Not a request, but a demand for every financial document Evelyn had handled in 5 years. Bank statements, credit card bills, expense reports, Venmo records, everything. Her lawyer moved to dismiss it as overly broad and harassing, but the judge, clearly cowed by Marcus's reputation, reviewed Marcus's justification and granted the motion in full. Evelyn was compelled to turn over everything. She had thought she'd covered her tracks. She had no idea she was facing a man who kept teams of forensic accountants on retainer like toys. While she was drowning in paperwork, Marcus pressed the personal angle. Depositions of Evelyn, her closest friends, family, and even colleagues. His tactic was simple: apply pressure from every direction until the truth was squeezed out. The breakthrough came during the deposition of Evelyn's best friend, Chloe, who, fiercely loyal though she was, cracked under Marcus's polite but relentless questioning. He asked about Evelyn's spending, work trips, and general happiness in the marriage, then posed the question that blew the case open. "Can you tell me about Mr. David Kincaid?" Chloe flinched. The name meant nothing to me. Marcus waited as Chloe tried to hedge. Then he produced credit card statements from a card I never knew existed. A card tied to our joint savings that Evelyn had been siphoning from for over a year. He pointed to charges: a hotel in wine country, high-end jewelry, lavish dinners for two, on dates when Evelyn claimed to be on work conferences her employer later confirmed didn't exist. "You were not with her," he said. "So I ask you again, who is David Kincaid?" Chloe broke and, under penalty of perjury, admitted the truth. David Kincaid was Evelyn's lover for the past 18 months, a wealthy real estate developer she'd met through her former job. Suddenly, everything clicked. The secrecy, the financial maneuvers, the brazen demands. She wasn't merely leaving me. She was leaving me for someone else and attempting to strip our marriage of assets to fund her new life. David's deposition was even more revealing. His arrogant facade crumbled under Marcus's relentless interrogation. He confessed to the affair and admitted he and Evelyn had conspired on the divorce strategy, even encouraging her to demand the house in support because he believed I'd be too poor and weak to contest it. They had underestimated me and my family. With these depositions, Evelyn's case didn't just weaken, it imploded. She'd committed perjury in her initial filings, concealed assets, and misappropriated marital funds. Her lawyer phoned Marcus begging to settle. Evelyn would drop her demands and walk away. Marcus's reply was icy: "No. Walking away is a privilege she hasn't earned. We are not settling. We are going to court and we are going to burn her to the ground." She'd wanted a fight. Now she had one. Final update. 6 months after I first walked into that courtroom as a man who thought he'd lost everything, I can tell you I was wrong. I didn't lose what truly mattered. I reclaimed it. The final hearing was a formality. Confronted with the mountain of evidence, depositions, forensic accounting reports, proof of the affair and the scheme to defraud, Evelyn had no option but to capitulate. Her lawyer, exhausted and defeated, urged her to accept any terms we offered. The terms Marcus drafted were unforgiving. Evelyn left with less than nothing. She forfeited any claim to the house. Her demand for spousal support was dismissed with prejudice. Because Marcus proved she had spent over $60,000 of marital assets on the affair, hotels, gifts, vacations with her lover. The judge ordered that some deducted from her share of our savings and returned to me. She exited the marriage with a tiny fraction of what she'd sought, a mountain of legal bills, and the public disgrace of her scheme exposed in open court. The personal fallout was equally devastating. David King, facing legal and social consequences, abandoned her almost immediately. He wanted a winner, and she had just suffered a spectacular public defeat. Friends who had testified under oath about her lies distanced themselves. She lost her fiancé, her house, her savings, her boyfriend, and her reputation in one catastrophic sweep, all because she underestimated the quiet man she'd married. But the true, most important part of this chapter was what happened with my brother. Weeks after the divorce was finalized, Marcus called me. "Meet me at the old house," he said. I drove to our parents' home, the house that had triggered our stupid 5-year feud, and found him sitting on the porch steps. We didn't revisit the case or Evelyn. We spoke about our dad's awful fishing trips, our mom's legendary apple pie, about being kids. After a long pause, he said, "I was wrong, Tommy. I was so focused on the money and the asset that I forgot what this place was. It's our home. I was wrong. I told him I'd been wrong too, stuck in the past and unable to imagine a different future for it. We didn't sell the house. We agreed to keep it together. Over the last few weekends, we've been restoring it, fixing the porch, repainting rooms, breathing life back into it. It's no longer a shrine to memory, but a project for our future, a gathering place for the family that matters. Working side by side with my brother, tools in our hands, has healed a wound I thought would remain a permanent scar. Evelyn's parting barb that I couldn't afford a lawyer, Her greed, her arrogance, her certainty that I was weak and alone, was the very thing that forced me to make the call that brought my brother back into my life. She tried to isolate me. Instead, she reunited me with the most important person I have. She attempted to leave me with nothing, but as I stand now with my home intact and my brother beside me, I realize I have regained more than I lost. If you enjoy listening to crazy, relatable, and entertaining confessions, this is the perfect channel for you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for being part of the Banana Confessions family. Your support means the world.